Mamie belle, la moustache et la capucha. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki takatiki. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Mamie belle, la moustache et la capucha.
What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show. And today I'm finally back. I'm back from all the draft stuff, everything that's going on. I'm excited and everything. I'm here to take you guys out of the echo chamber for you guys to start hearing names that you might have not heard before, or names that you're not quite familiar with. So now what happened is that I talked to somebody and they felt that I should change this segment. And this segment I'm now going to be calling the Hidden Gem segment, where I give you guys that is not being talked about in the echo chamber and give you my honest opinion on this. Now understand this, a lot of these guys, I basically got them as fits for Washington scheme, but if your scheme is similar to Washington, or you run a style of offense and defense like Washington does or will be doing, you can actually put these people on your team to be in that field of study too. So here are the hidden gems. I'm going to start off at wide receiver. So my hidden gem number one is Dante Thornton Jr., the wide receiver out of Tennessee. Now, for some of y'all who don't know him, he's 6'5", 2 something. I think he's about 215 or something like that. He's a big wide receiver. The great thing about him is that he separates very well. He's a guy that will separate from a cornerback very quickly and he has very good precision when it comes to running routes and everything like that. And he's a nightmare in zone coverage, an absolute nightmare. He finds sweet spots very well, and there are times where he'll sit up there and he does a really fantastic job with, when plays break down, being available for his quarterback to find him. He displayed that at Oregon. He used to be at Oregon. In fact, he was there for Bo Nix's first year at Oregon, because at first he used to wear the number 10, and when Bo Nix showed up, he changed his number to number 2. So again, this guy right here is absolutely great. And again, the only reason I don't think he's talked about as highly as some of the other guys that they're talking about going into the first round is because he only played, I think, like 6 or 7 games last year. But his talent is absolutely on par with the rest of those guys. If he would have sat up there and actually had a full season to actually play, we're talking about him in the first round as well. And like I said, you don't get a guy that has this elite athleticism and with the height that he has, and on top of that, his ability to get open. I mean, this guy gets open. It's just that he's played in systems that haven't been beneficial to him. When he was at Oregon, when he went to Tennessee, it was the smart move, because at the time Tennessee's offense was very favorable to wide receivers. It's just that he didn't get the opportunity to play a whole season in it. So again, like I said, Dante Thornton Jr., the wide receiver, 6'5" wide receiver out of Tennessee. He is a hidden gem. Next is Johnny Wilson, the 6'6" wide receiver out of Florida State. About 230 something pounds, has a 7-foot wingspan. I like him more as a tight end than I do as a wide receiver. As a wide receiver, he does well there, but he seems a little awkward when he's coming off of the line. I think that him being utilized as a tight end would be better, because at the end of the day, you can see a guy that with that 7-foot wingspan could be a nightmare across the middle of the field and actually be an even more devastating thing when you talk about jump balls into the end zone, or what we like to also call YOLO balls. So think about that. You take a Johnny Wilson, and you apply him to a rookie quarterback who's learning a system, learning how to be good and things like that, and he has basically a 7-foot receiver who's able to make plays that he can just lob the ball up to, even though you don't want him to have those type of bad habits. But the fact that he'll have something like that available to him would be great for him. And again, you're talking about a guy, a 7-foot wingspan. That's at times that's unheard of for guys like that. I think the only other guy that I think had that type of wingspan might be Kyle Pitts. But again, you take that and you move that from wide receiver to tight end, you have a really intriguing tight end. And I like Johnny Wilson at the top of that. Next, I have 2 other tight ends, but I'm going to talk about them in comparison because they come from the same school. And that's Devin Cope, the tight end out of Washington, and Jack Westover, the tight end out of Washington. I like both these guys. Now, Devin Cope is more of your traditional tight end. He does a great job with being available when your quarterback is on the move. When your quarterback is in trouble and he's on the move, he gets himself open. He flashes his availability, and he does a fantastic job with catching the ball. He catches the ball. He does have moments where he had some drops, but he doesn't drop the ball often at all. And like I said, he makes himself available. He does run really good routes. I mean, there are times where, the talk about Michael Penix not throwing across the middle or short passes, that is completely blown up, because if you watch these games, there's plenty of times where you see Devin Cope come across the middle and it's a short pass. Or Devin Cope will sit up there and mean to come do a short pass, but then breaks it off and takes it a little bit deeper because of the fact that he sees that there's a zone coverage that's been broke down. So Devin Cope is really good at noticing those type of things. That doesn't mean he's a fantastic route runner, but that does mean that he sees the open areas in the zone or in the defense, and he finds ways to get himself open and is available for his quarterback to see him. So Devin Cope, I like him. The other one, Jack Westover, again, Devin Cope and Jack Westover are 2 different tight ends in their style of play, because Jack Westover plays more of a H-back type of tight end position where he does a lot of blocking, but he gets lost in coverage a lot. And it almost comes off as lazy route running, but there's actually a method to the madness in that. He's actually making himself seem like not a part of the offensive play, when in fact he actually is a part of the play, and he gets open just as much. Again, the talk about Michael Penix not throwing short or things like that, that's taken away when you think about Jack Westover and how many short plays that he took from Michael Penix Jr. and took them to the distance or took them further because of it. And again, he's very reliable when it comes to catching the football. He catches the football, he gets up the field. It's very rare that you almost never see Jack Westover take lost yardage. He does remind me, now a lot of people from Washington remember this, but he does remind me a lot of Chris Cooley. His style of play, his aggressiveness, the way remember how you would see Chris Cooley and it seemed like he was jogging out there, but yet he was getting, all of a sudden, next thing you know, he releases and he gets open. Jack Westover is a lot like that. He does remind me a whole lot of Chris Cooley. So Jack Westover, I like him a lot as a tight end. So my tight ends, Johnny Wilson, Devin Cope, and Jack Westover. Next is offensive lineman. It's not a lot of offensive. It's a lot of offensive linemen in this particular draft. I don't know how many of them will be available later in the draft, because I honestly feel that offensive line, especially the tackle position, there's going to be a massive run on them in the first round and in the second round. We saw this last year where there was a run. We saw this last year, and we saw this in, I think, 2021, where we saw the run on tackles happen very early in the draft. I think that this particular draft, we're going to see that as well because there are a lot of elite edge guys in this draft. We might see the tackle position actually dominate the first round more than what we actually anticipated. A good example of that is Jordan Morgan. People think that he's going to fall into the second round. I don't think he'll fall into the second round. He has the most skill that's identical to Trent Williams than a lot of guys. He's very athletic. He gets out there on the blocks. You can pull him. You can do a lot of things with him. And not only that, you're talking about a guy who has a very solid nasty streak. So I don't think Jordan Morgan falls into the second round. I think that there's going to be a huge run on tackles, and you're going to have to find one probably earlier than you think. And it's going to be tough to find the tackles it's going to be tough to not get a lot of tackles in the first round because, again, when you think about some of the things that's going to be falling to the third and fourth rounds, you're going to see running back fall to the third and fourth round. You're going to see, like I said, a lot of the edge guys, they're going to fall to the second and third rounds. You're going to see some corners, safeties. You're going to see safeties fall into that round. So don't be surprised if you see tons of tackles. But back to what I was talking about. So the first tackle I have on here is Walter Roos, the 6'6", 3-something guy out of Oklahoma. I like him a lot. He's a run blocker. Again, the system, not certain what the system is going to be, but if we're going to have a mobile quarterback, you want a tackle who can block that mobility. And when you think about that, Walter Roos is fantastic at run blocking. He has a nasty streak. He does very well when it comes to run blocking. Now, he needs work in pass protection, but not as much work as people think. He can do a fantastic job. With the fact that you have certain players like a Cornelius Lucas there, if you can let him kind of develop his skill in the pass protection area, where it's just little techniques that he needs to learn. It's not really him learning a lot. He just needs to learn these little nuances that will help him in the long run. I think Walter Roos is going to be really good in this league as he comes up. And I do feel he is something that is special. Now, again, I understand that, not everybody feels the same way about certain players. But there's sometimes you can see certain things from a guy that next thing you know, they become something very special. And Walter Roos, like I said, his nasty streak as a run blocker is fantastic. But if you just get those little nuances fixed in his game, he's going to be a great left tackle once he gets into the league. Next is Caden Wallace. Now, Caden Wallace, I remember him from years ago. I remember he was a top recruit coming out of high school, and I remember Maryland was supposed to get him at one point. They were recruiting, and I think he was supposed to go to Maryland, and he ended up opting and going to Penn State instead. But Caden Wallace, when you talk about a consistent offensive lineman, this guy is it. Now, I know that the season before the last season, he got injured. I think he only played like 7 games. But even at that point, he barely gives up any real pressure, and he rarely gives up any sacks. I mean, I think he had a couple years or maybe like a few years where he only gave up 1 sack. And then he had another year where he gave up 0 sacks. He had 2 years, I think, where he gave up 0 sacks. And I think he had 2 years where he gave up maybe 2 sacks or 1 sack. And, I mean, this guy, he is a right tackle. Now, I will say this. I think that there's times where when you watch his film, you get a little worried because it looks like he's getting too deep into the pocket. But he's so under control that it's almost crazy that people are ignoring how good he can actually be, especially at right tackle. Now, I know that most people wouldn't want to take a right tackle so high, but something like this, you're talking about, I do feel he can be a Pro Bowl right tackle in this NFL because he does play with very good balance. He plays under control and he doesn't give up a lot of pressures and sacks. He really doesn't. I mean, and you know, sometimes you can see that he might have some issue with a speed guy, but he recovers so well that he immediately takes the speed guys out of the play. So again, like I said, I like Caden Wallace. I think that this guy is on the path of being a Pro Bowl right tackle. And I don't see many people talking about him. So again, I like Caden Wallace. The other guy I got is Christian Jones, the tackle out of Texas. I think he can play swing tackle. Again, he's a big guy. He doesn't give up a lot of sacks. He doesn't give up a lot of pressures. There are things to be left desired at times. And I do think that he's a guy that could be pushed to guard, but it wouldn't be necessary to push him to guard because he plays with good balance as well. But a lot of his problem is like when a player looks like he's doing one move and then he does something different, sometimes he gets out of whack with that. Now, he does play well against guys, and I think that probably goes to him studying. I think that with Christian Jones, I think that if he learns more from watching film, he will be better because I think he's watching film, but I don't know how much he's really paying attention to the guys he's going up against when he's watching film. Because there are a lot of times that he just doesn't get when somebody does a different move on him in the same sequence and he gets caught out of place. But he rarely makes a mistake when it comes to that. And like I said, again, I like Christian Jones. Again, he's a guy that could be moved to guard, but he's somebody that plays very well. Next is Terrence Ferguson, the second, Alabama, the guard out of Alabama. Big guy, gets in the way, eats up space. I think that, again, this is a guy that you can do the switcheroo. You can put him on the right side. You can put him on the left side and still get the same type of production out of him. He doesn't blow you away, I would say, but he does pose. He does have an imposing figure on him when it comes to him going up against players. And you can see that his initial punch, he really does get in people's face. So I like Terrence Ferguson the second a lot. But I do feel that there's some stuff that is still there to left to be desired. But I do feel that he's another guy that can be something very special at the next level too. And again, you look at all the guys that I basically railed off, you can actually rebuild your offensive line in this current draft with these four guys. You can actually do that. So again, those are the guys that I like at offensive line. Next is my cornerback. So when it comes to the Joe Witt, Dan Quinn system, they like certain types of defensive backs, and they like for them to be aggressive. And from that, I got two guys that I feel pose that very thing when it comes to that level of defense. So the first guy is Kalen King, and he's an aggressive cornerback. Very, very aggressive, which in turn makes him a little handsy at times because he will take a penalty for holding and stuff like that. But when he plays lights out. He attacks the ball. He'll sit up there and make a play. He'll come up and hit. He has no problem tackling. And like I said, he does pose that risk. Like, you know how Bland was to Dan Quinn last year. Kalen King could also be that same guy. Now again, I do think that they like Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St-Juste outside. But if you really want a guy like Kalen King, who definitely shows you that level of aggression and gameplay, not only that, I think that he will push Emmanuel Forbes to be better, and he'll push Benjamin St-Juste to be better, because he does have this very imposing attacking style that is really desirable in a Joe Witt, Dan Quinn system. So I like Kalen King. The other guy that I like is Ryan Watts, the cornerback out of Texas, 6'3", 2 something. I like him more as a safety than a corner, but the fact that he can play corner in a pinch, he does have that. To me, he seems that because he comes up and tackles a lot, he does kind of remind me slightly of what Cameron Curl was. Cameron Curl started out as a corner, moved to safety, and became a really solid safety, and was a tackling type of, and was a guy who could come up and tackle a lot. Ryan Watts does the exact same thing. He tackles. He does not avoid tackles at all. He can sit up there at times, shut down guys. Not only that, prior to being at Texas, he was at Ohio State, so he got the opportunity to constantly go up against a guy like Marvin Harrison in practice often. So I like Ryan Watts, but I like him more as a safety because I do like the fact that he does have an aggressive style when it comes to coming down, filling up the gaps. When it comes to tackling, and when it comes to tackling, he will tackle. He does not avoid tackles at all. And I think that type of play would be very great for a Dan Quinn, Joe Witt type of defense. Next are my linebackers. So with us bringing in Bobby Wagner is a very good linebacker, but he's also a very good teacher. He's played with multiple guys who've gone on and actually been very solid in the league, but he's also been a very solid mentor because he leads by example, along with leading by pretty much like showing people how to actually play. The two guys I would like under him, so guy number one is Junior Carlson, the linebacker out of Michigan. I like his ability to be sideline to sideline. I think he can play Mike if you really expand his role. You can tell he's a very smart player. He plays very well in coverage as well. He doesn't get beat that often. Now, there are times where when he can get blocked out of the way, but I think that that's just him learning leverage more than anything else. And I would love to see him mentored by a Bobby Wagner, because I think that if he's mentored by Bobby Wagner, especially at 6'2" and 2 something, I think that this could be Bobby Wagner's biggest achievement at linebacker, and a guy that he can convert into a Pro Bowl top level quality linebacker in this league as well. Like I said, I like Junior Carlson. I like the fact that he's sideline to sideline. I like the fact that he's very smart when it comes to coming up and making plays and actually diagnosing plays. So again, I like him a whole lot. The other guy I like is Jacoby Windman, the linebacker out of Michigan State. Now, he didn't have a long season last year. I think he only played like about 3 or 4 games. But with him, he played in a Michael Parsons style of role at Michigan State. There were times where he played middle linebacker, weak side linebacker, strong side linebacker, edge, like he was rushing the passer. He did a lot at Michigan State. But again, I think that a guy like this in a Joe Witt, Dan Quinn system, you can maximize this guy's talent. And again, he's a guy that you can see he could play the Mike linebacker as well. If he got the tutelage to do that as well, it's again under Bobby Wagner. I think again you can produce what could be a top level middle linebacker in this system. Not only that, a guy who can blitz very well. He will come through that line and blitz incredibly well. But his only issue is coverage. Now, it doesn't mean that he can't cover. It's that he doesn't diagnose the routes as well. But that's because Michigan State used him all over the field. So there wasn't that opportunity to really learn as much as he could have if he was dedicated to actually learning a particular situation or being able to actually read routes as often as he could have. But again, Jacoby Windman, I like him a lot. Last but not least is something I feel very strongly about, and that's the factor of actually drafting 2 quarterbacks this year. I feel that in this draft, it's okay to draft 2 quarterbacks this year. And the reason why is because you want to be able to accommodate if injury should happen. It's not about injury going to happen. If it does happen, if it should happen, you are ready for the next guy. Now, again, all indications are that Jayden Daniels will be our guy. So for that, as a person who really focuses on the fact that your backup quarterback should somewhat be identical to your starting quarterback, you should find guys that you can actually use in that way and not feel like you have to change up that offense. So for that, the 2 guys I got, my favorite guy is Emory Jones, the 6'3" quarterback out of Cincinnati. Was at Michigan State. Arizona State. Sorry, was at Arizona State. And played very in that. I like his skill. He's a guy that can move. He's again a mobile guy that is very good outside the pocket. Does a very good job throwing the ball outside the pocket. Same, a little bit bigger than Jayden Daniels in regards to weight, but still almost the same player. Same with the accuracy. Does a good job with being accurate. Now his problem is that sometimes what happened, but again, I think that was because where he was playing at in Cincinnati, he didn't have a very solid offensive line. So there were a lot of times where you saw him when he was moved off of his spot, he seemed to be a little bit less accurate and was throwing off his back foot. But I think a lot of that was because he had no choice, because he didn't have the protection that he necessarily needed in Cincinnati. So again, Emory Jones, he throws a very accurate ball, throws a very good deep ball. And again, if you take him and let's just say by chance something was to happen, he could come in and you can run the same offense and not have to change it at all to match his skills, because his skills are almost on the same level as Jayden Daniels. So again, I think, and this is a guy that he's, for some reason, I don't know why he's gone under the radar like this. And it's surprising that he is. But again, when you look at his film, for people who don't know how to watch it, you don't understand how it's not necessarily his fault that he's having to, he's losing games and things like that, but it's just him having to make plays and forced to make plays because the team around him isn't that good. So again, like I said, Emory Jones, that's the guy I really like to be another quarterback we select. The other guy is Joe Milton III. 6'5", 230 something. Cam Newton-like. At Tennessee, played at Tennessee, had Dante Thornton Jr. there with him. Doesn't quite have the accuracy you want in a quarterback, but that's something that you can eventually train out of him. Has all the physical tools like a Cam Newton, just somebody that's big and strapping, and he's able to run and he's mobile. He has a strong arm. Like one of his few issues is his accuracy in throwing, and the fact that he doesn't throw with anticipation. Like, if this guy learns how to throw with anticipation and gets way more accurate, this guy can be a threat in the NFL, a massive threat in the NFL. And I like him a whole lot. Again, another guy you don't have to manipulate the offense to fit his skills, because his skills actually matches the offense that you have in place. And he would be a very big impact guy if he gets to a point where he's in trouble. He doesn't go down easy on tackles. So again, you're talking about a big strapping guy at quarterback who doesn't have the limitations that some other quarterbacks do. So those are my hidden gems in this upcoming NFL draft. Y'all tell me how many of y'all know these guys. If y'all have guys that you want to find out my honest opinion on my review of these guys, leave a comment. Let me know which guy you want me to tell you about. Let me know which guy you feel the guy you feel the best about. Tell me if you agree with some of my review of these guys. Other than that, this has been your man John Fortune, back with the regularly scheduled programming, and this is the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.